I think we're a little early. That's all
I think we
right.
are a little early. Sorry.
Hey guys, how you doing? It is Mr. and Mrs. Honey Do Carpenter. We are in our shop, and today on our live show, I'm just going to go over a little bit about the creative process of coming up with this Crete air conditioner. And I've gotten a lot of comments of people thinking that I'm confusing the terms between air conditioner and evaporative cooler and stuff, but I assure you I'm not, and that I have a deep understanding of air conditioning systems in general for whatever use they are. But just real quick, I just want to regress and backtrack just a minute and kind of give you a sense for the subject matter that I'm going to discuss as far as the creative process goes. I know last week I took this block that is very porous and I poured water right through it to just kind of demonstrate to you how porous that you can actually make aircrete. And then I went in and showed you some more dense ones that have a lot more microscopic cells in them, and how water doesn't flow through them easily, but it still absorbs water and whatnot. And how I was going to create just the aircrete recipe, and that it would be somewhere in between there. Now, that being said, the physical properties of aircrete are a really neat dynamic that is going to make this air conditioner extremely unique. The fact that it not only is an insulator, but it also acts as an absorber and a heat sink of whatever energy is beside it, um, is going to kind of change the dynamic completely. And just to give you an idea of what I mean by that, I've worked on lots of different evaporative coolers because we live in the high desert here, and they're used extensively. None of them are insulated. If you ever feel the top of one while it's running, it's extremely cold. Now that energy is just radiating out as the sun beats on it, or because it's in a warm environment, and being lost. Okay, so aircrete is going to completely change that dynamic. Oh,
Okay, I'll be right back.
Mr. Mini Me Honeydew Carpenter just came in and needs mom. But it's going to completely change that dynamic. Now, I'll explain it to you kind of in real simple terms. Now, that energy that isn't being lost because of the insulative properties of aircrete, I'm going to show people how to capture that energy using one of these and one of these. Still, very low voltage. You could run that on a USB port. It's still going to be able to be off-grid on a complete solar system. And you're going to be able to take that energy that was typically lost and recapture it using basically a heater core from any vehicle. You can go online to any auto place and access these for between $16 and $27, so they're really inexpensive. Now the unit will run without capturing that additional energy, but if you do want to add the extra expense, you'll see in the drawings when I post them publicly how that whole situation will work. Now, I also, and here's my review, I did a lot of research on different low voltage fans. This is a 10-inch fan. It has 5 blades. It's an O2 cool fan, and they had really good reviews on it. The thing that really struck me about it was that it literally, if you put 6D batteries in the base that folds out, it'll run for 40 hours on 6D batteries. So it's very efficient, uses very small amount of energy. Now, I talked last week about a small blower that's a 3-inch blower that moves for being so small, it moves over 130 cubic feet per minute, which is a tremendous amount of air for that small of a blower. that will be used on the intake. So it'll be a push-pull system, and this will be for the volume. Now, as I was going through this whole process, initially, I was just going to go with my original design that I kind of had in my head, and it was in a 55-gallon drum situation, because I wanted it to be used not only for off-grid, but for animal shelters and whatnot. That being said, the actual cooling block that is going to be a block of aircrete, situated in a way that air can flow through it as it is saturated with water. I wanted to make it in a form that wasn't so complicated, because I want to be able to put a drawing out and say, use this as your form block, and use this, use that, and make it easy for anybody. Not something that the Honey Do Carpenter can go out in his shop and build, but maybe nobody else can. And
He's
so
been like a mad scientist, changing the process time and
well,
again.
it's the same process. I am just in my mind reconfiguring and looking at different things that I can use to make it easier for you and that are easily accessible to everybody out there. That being said, this, guys, is a little file cabinet holder. It's perforated all around, and it's about 11 inches tall, 15, 16 inches wide, or long, and about 12 inches wide. So this is going to be the form that is going to be used to pour into. Now, some of these holes are going to have to be plugged. Some of them are going to have to be plugged by putting a PVC pipe all the way through, and during the pouring process. And those holes that are created by the PVC pipe, once they're pulled out, they'll have a release agent on them, so they'll just give them a tap and they'll pull right out. Will be filled with something like this. Now, anybody who knows anything about evaporative coolers knows where I'm going with this, okay? So all we have to do is have a reservoir that recirculates a water source over the top of this aircrete block, and I'm actually going to insulate the reservoir as well, and that's going to have a lot to do with how I'm going to use these two items to capture that extra energy that is typically lost in the normal system. The reservoir, easily accessible as well. Oh, thank you, baby. You're like better than like in the 50s, those women showing a refrigerator.
You're so
This is another type of file box from the same company, Sterilite. You can see if you take the lid off on the inside, it has the runners where the files slide and whatnot, but it's solid. It's not perforated. Perfect for a reservoir. Oh, I wish I had it in here. I don't. But the thing about this stuff is, like that file box, this one is like $3.41. Anybody can go to Walmart and pick one up, right? I didn't want to make it complicated where somebody had to build a box out of sheet metal and pop rivet it and drill holes into it to facilitate this. That was my original idea, and it was all going to be encased inside of a 55-gallon drum, and it had this intricate way of forcing the air through and sealing the sides, and it was just too complicated. So I'm making this simple, I'm making it easy, and I'm really excited about putting out the build videos on it.
All right, let's say hi to some of you guys. The Maker Show says hi.
Hey,
Kenny
how you doing,
Bean
buddy?
says hi.
Oh, Kenny,
The
awesome.
Maker Show says, glad you guys are taking a little time for yourselves. We did have to take a little bit of break. We were kind of getting a little overwhelmed with everything going on.
Well, yeah.
But he's also been like mad scientist down here, just working away too. So.
Well, the creative process requires that. It just does. At
It really
least
does.
for me, as an inventor of different things. looking at how this situation works and this one works and how this one, you know, I mean, I've even been studying, you know, Peltier or seaback coolers, however you want to call it.
Barry says, hi, Mr. and Mrs. Honeydew. Well, hi, Barry.
And Final Frontier.
Reality. Love you guys. Keep up the great work. And it looks like they donated a little bit. Thank you.
Wow.
That is amazing. You guys are
Awesome.
amazing. Barry says you already have a working prototype. Do you already have a working prototype?
Yeah, I had a working prototype, but it was way too complicated.
So you're trying to make it.
When you're doing a project like this, and you want to take these technologies and get them on a low-level DIY type of skill set, so that it can actually benefit way more people, it's kind of counterproductive. Yeah, I can go in my shop and build and weld and do about anything, but not everybody can. And so essentially, I've been kind of going through a process of how to make it simpler. Put the cookies on the bottom shelf so everybody can have some, you know.
Danny says, I have been working on the ideas for many years, but I don't have resources to play with the ideas. Okay.
That's my exact point right there.
Right, exactly.
Right? I want to say, hey guys,
understand.
look, here's a foam mate. You know, here's the recipe. You mix it up in a bucket, you pour it in this form. How do you make the form? You go to Walmart and you spend $4 on this, you know, or $3.41, whatever it was, on this box. And you go to Lowe's and you buy a couple of pieces of this. This is the very, it's not the heavy duty stuff. It's only like a couple dollars for a 10-foot stick of this 1-inch PVC pipe.
And you can have them cut it there.
You stick them through the holes. How do you plug the holes that you don't want aircrete running out of? Well, you just go to your kitchen and you grab some sticky saran wrap and just stick over it. You know, that's my whole point of doing this is people who don't have the resources or to monkey with this stuff and do it a certain way. I want to take normal everyday stuff that they can use and bam, they can put it together. And I mean, the size of this unit, obviously, it's only going to be about 22 inches tall. The reservoir, everything. So it's...
We do have a question asking if you can use a bigger 12-volt fan than a much bigger 12-volt fan.
And that is the thing. Absolutely. This is going to be done in a configuration where you could actually make multiple blocks, stack them up, and you could run more air through more of a evaporator system, through the Crete block evaporator system. And so it could be on-grid or off-grid situation.
Quality Life says hello. Barry says, is the water Mr. Swamp Cooler? Is this a water Mr. Swamp Cooler? And then he said, okay, so it is a swamp cooler. So,
yeah, it is.
And then he said, sounds amazing. So you must have answered something.
It's a swamp cooler on steroids because of the elements of Crete with its insulating properties. And I'm going to show you guys a way to capture some of that lost energy in a typical system.
Okay, Chad says that he sent you an email last weekend on where you can find something. I heard you mention for strength DIY polyurethane. A gun that retails for less than $600. Email. Okay. Have you seen that email?
Yeah, I did. I actually looked at that. Let me read the whole thing again. Sent you an email on. You can find something I heard you mention for strength
DIY.
A polyurethane gun that retails for less than $600. I did look at those, and it, you know, it's a spray gun. It could waterproof the outside, and that was another. I had an idea to do that as well after I saw that, of just instead of putting this in a form that kind of seals the outside, to be able to seal the outside where you need it to be sealed, just create a block, pull the form completely off, put your holes through it, and then seal it doing that. But I wanted to keep it simple and uncomplicated so that anybody could do it. And it's crazy that my boys were playing with one of these out in the backyard. They had kind of stolen it from our storage deal. And I looked at it and went, wow, let me see, what could I do with that to make a block out of it?
Okay, Danny said,
Dave, you're supposed to keep your phone on silent.
it is on silent. I didn't hear anything.
Anyways, pull up that comment.
Hi.
Yeah, hybriding technologies can do much more and already proven individually. If you want to run ideas around, I would like a conversation. I'm leaving this fall to travel and help some people. That's awesome. And that's kind of my whole point of doing all these things that I'm doing, is to get a conversation going on these hybriding technologies. A lot of people, they look at like Peltier and these block heating and cooling systems and computer systems, and you can see people, they use them to like cool 2 or 3 sodas. They're really kind of inefficient on a large scale for like an air conditioning type thing, but they do use them in computers. But most people don't realize that that stuff was invented in the 1800s. I'm talking like in 1821. Thomas Seaback, he's the one that invented the heat sink with dissimilar metals, and realized that if you put a heat source on one end, it dissipates as a cold out the other end and creates a magnetic field. That had been invented since like 1821, and now they're just, you know, and people go and they go on YouTube and they see these things and they think they're new technologies, but they're not. They're people taking and hybriding and morphing old technologies with new technologies and making things better. And so that's awesome.
Okay, Douglas Pohl is wondering if the materials are more or less than $65 in DIY material cost.
They are, Doug, which is kind of crazy, because I did go and price some of those standalone units that you were talking about, just out of curiosity. The cheapest one for the smallest areas, which don't really do much, were well over $170. And all they do is they're standalone units, and you pour water into them, and they recirculate the air in your home and moisten it. So they become less and less efficient. Because now my system is it can be used that way, or it can be used with an exterior source of air coming in. And it can be set outside and blown in, or it can be put inside and just have like a dryer vent going, a 6-inch dryer vent or whatever going out to draw a fresh air source into the system. Now, that being said, you're going to have a foam mate to do it. So the initial cost up front is going to be more than the $65. Now, I did the math on it, and it's way less than $50 for the file cabinet, the forms, the PVC tubes, all the stainless steel wool. It's way less. Now, if you add a foam mate as a tool into it and count that, then it's a little more than $65. However, keep in mind, you can do a lot with a foam mate, right? And so if you're one of these people who wants to experiment and do different types of projects with a foam mate and just have one, so that you can do an oven, so that you can do a heating system, so that you can do a cooling system, so that you can do all these types of different things and experiment with it, then you're good to go. But yeah.
Okay, so we got a really nice compliment. Thank you. It says, you guys rock.
Awesome.
The Maker Show says, I have almost completed my Crete system. Crete 1 is just about complete and mobile. That sounds
awesome.
Very interesting. It's a trailer. I'm set up for a mobile Crete building. That sounds really cool.
That is cool.
You need a chalkboard. If we did a chalkboard right now, it would be backwards because we're doing a live and it's a mirror feed. So right now I'm actually on the right side of my husband. But
Yeah.
It looks like I'm on the left.
Yeah.
Danny says a house design is in my head that combines the passive and simple tech. Free-formed lightweight molds and tech can make a self-sustainable system for fuel, AC, and refrigeration, electricity, and more.
Yeah. Now, I'm really super excited. I have a friend in Indiana who works in the industry that I used to work in. He works as a quality control engineer or whatever in Indiana. And he right now, as we speak, is doing these gravimetric compression tests on batteries of Crete using my recipes. And he also got with a distributor for BASF and has acquired, they offered to give him to test on it, this latex modifier. And I'm so, understand guys, I'm telling you about this now. Most people don't understand that they can't, cast some Crete and go test it the next day. That's not how it works. He's going to do his first breaks at 7 days, then 14, 21, 28, and then 56 days. And that's going to be with these different mix designs. This is going to be at least a 3 or 4 month process before we get results, and specifically on how the modifier works and how it works with different designs. But I'm really super excited about it. So that being said, right now, I'm getting some pretty good results strength-wise with the wall panels. Actually, I was talking to that very gentleman in Indiana, and I said when I loaded it up 500 pounds, I actually flexed so much that the on that wall panel that the forms popped out like that a little bit and pulled away from the Crete. And he said, well, that tells me that what was holding all that weight was the actual Crete panel. And that's true. That's exactly what it was. But at the same time, with the latex modifier in it, just because of the nature of it and the binders in it and whatnot, I think it's going to do a tremendous amount of good in it. And so we'll see.
We are super excited. Monique says, thank you for making it simple. Well, thank you, Monique. And the Maker Show says, I have a tool to build a dome homes and the other types of Crete buildings. How exciting.
And Danny Jewell says there are 3 types of swamp coolers. This looks like a combination of a direct and indirect swamp cooler. That's true. There are 3 types. Some of them have these mats that water is pumped down and gravity pulls through on all sides. Some of them have a core that is a lot thicker, so it only comes in one end of the unit, and but it's thicker, so it makes up for the fact that it doesn't come in on the sides as well. What they all have in common, though, is when they're running, you touch them and they're cold. That cold air is just dissipating out in the atmosphere. That energy is being lost. If you look at swamp coolers in general, if you're in an area that's below 50% humidity typically, you're going to end up getting between a 25 and 28 degree increase as the air flows through those pads or through the mechanism and goes through that evaporation process. Now, that being said, even if you're in 70 or above humidity, swamp coolers still will give you a 5 to 10 degree difference in change, so they can be effective. The only problem is typically in those environments they try and run dehumidifiers because there's kind of a comfort zone of humidity, and for humans to just hang out in. And so, but even so, it would work in both environments.
So Chad says that he should have clarified on the polyurethane gun from Fast Kick.
Yeah.
was for your shed star. It is a super structural coating that is waterproof. Email also has a link in best DIY swamp cooler I've ever seen. That's cool.
Cool.
If I ordered a foam mate, how long would it take to get one?
Well, right now we have them set at between 1 to 2 weeks, but we're on about 1 week right now. I'm actually put out a lot of them lately. And so I would say 1 week. If you order a foam mate, we'll get it to you and out to you and on its way in 1 week. And we do everything by 2-day priority mail. It costs a little more, but I want people to get it as soon as possible, so I do that. I know there's maybe quicker ways to do it, but there has to be a balance with the cost and efficiency of shipping stuff.
Okay, so Danny says that
if you want a Socratic discussion, I'm 65 and retired with a wide engineering background and a weld robotics build, repair and program professional. You and Mr. Thessalonian are my tech heroes.
wow.
You know what, dude? I just send me an email and leave me your phone number. The fact that you are on that you have a background in welding, robotics, and whatnot fascinates me a great deal. I'm looking at buying a machine that I can just put a flat piece of sheet metal on, and it will buzz out the exact shapes with the exact holes. And this is for a rocket mass system that I'm putting together that I want to be able to make shippable and just take the flat piece of sheet metal, ship them out to people, and all the holes will be pre-drilled and everything. All they have to do is just erect them, put them together, pop rivet, and fill them with Crete, and bam, you have a rocket mass stove. And so, yeah, we need to talk.
We have a lot of dreams. That's for sure. Okay, Danny also says that your listeners may understand the foam as an air-dried dry foam. Mayor Show says, I got a little Dragon, but it's pretty pricey and would like to find a cheaper foam generator.
You know what? I have a friend just north of me, about 40 miles, who came down, and he has a little Dragon too, and we were making some Crete using my foam mate, and he was just shaking his head. He couldn't believe it. The quality of foam, the consistency of it, and as far as a user-friendly product, especially with that new end gun that I just released, because I reduced the regulator bulb on the back, I reduced the volume in it and increased the resistance by compacting the stuff more. The consistency and not even having to fiddle with the valves to kind of get it just right. It just, you open the air and just feed in slowly the soap or the solution, the foam solution, and the consistency that it comes out now is insane. It is, but my point being is it's probably the most user-friendly foam generator on the market, bar none. The Green Dragon, kudos to them. They came up with one that works. It's a little pricey, a little expensive, but it's also a little bit not so user-friendly because it has that high-pressure pump on it, which isn't necessary in my view. But anyways, it is what it is.
All right, it looks like that's all of the questions we have so far. Is there anything else you wanted to hurry and talk about before we go?
I wanted to talk with people a little bit how air conditioning systems work, because they are different. They have they're loaded with a compressed gas in them, and when that gas gets hot, or when that it's actually a gas that's compressed into a liquid, and when you heat that liquid, it turns into a gas, and then is forced through coils, and it goes through. It has an air conditioner has three main elements, right? It has a condenser, an evaporator, and a compressor in it that make it run. And it also has a couple of different fans. So even though, well, and they take inside air and cool it and just recirculate the same stale air. So in some environments, it's more effective because of high humidity. But in most environments, particularly where I'm doing this one with Crete, the most efficient way to change the temperature of air is through a swamp cooler system. And I was looking at I took a computer apart. And I pulled this out of it. And it had a Peltier, a 200 watt, it had a 200 watt Peltier cooler that was on this cooling block. Now, how this works is it has a fan on one side, it has cooling fins here, but it also has these little copper wires that go through the cooling block. And this thing has a gas in it. So that gas is a liquid because it's compressed in these high pressure tubes. And as the heat from the computer warms this block, it turns that into a gas, and then it goes up into the top of the, you can see where those go through, and they go into the top, and they're just kind of capped off on that end. The gas goes up there, and then as the fan blows the air through these cooling fins, it cools it enough that it turns back into a liquid, runs back down, gets hot again, and it just circulates back and forth, back and forth. And so when you're thinking about air conditioning systems and Peltier systems and swamp cooler systems and how they work, a lot of people are just technology minded and they like the techiest thing, but a lot of times the simpler thing works better in their environment depending on where they're at. So that being said, read a couple more comments.
Keith says that I would like to spray foam Crete as a finish coat on a straw bale home exterior.
Yeah, I would like to do that too.
Cool too.
Oh gosh, guys, I want to be able to soon, whenever I get time after this Kickstarter and getting the shed done and everything, the next thing I want to do is, hopefully before I can go into rocket mass heater system or season, is build a Crete pump. Okay, this is a pump that'll pump it through like a 3-inch hose, and you can have a nozzle on it and be like a shotcrete kind of, and do exactly what you're talking about there. I have it drawn up. I just haven't had the time to go ahead and build it at this point. So
okay, so the Maker Show says I have a huge foam generator from China that is a 2K, and I want to mount one of those to a cement mixer truck.
I would love to see what kind of results you get doing that.
Definitely.
I'm wondering if the foam would just roll around, or how quickly and efficiently it would mix in large volumes like that in an actual mixer truck. I'm putting together a mixer right now that has paddles that go around. I'm not doing it this very second. I'm working on other things, but that's what I have drawn up. And most of the mixers I've seen, even the China ones, have a paddle type system like that. But then after the slurry gets mixed up in a paddle, it'll go into another apparatus that also has paddles to fold the foam in. And then once it's homogeneous in that unit, it will be pressurized and pushed out through a pumping system. And so I'm hoping that I can get that built and have it ready to go by next spring, an Crete system.
So it looks like Danny had to go, he says, later and teach him good. And Chad says a type greenhouse evaporated cooler build into your YouTube combined with Crete and media filter. Cheap all materials at Home Depot.
Cool.
You all have a great weekend. Jeffrey has to go.
All right.
God bless you. the maker showed, and it's simple foam generators. You flip the switch and you got foam and lots of it.
Oh.
Right. And
cool.
Keith says thanks. All right. Anything else?
That's it, guys.
You guys have a wonderful day, and we'll talk to you later.
All right.